What's up guys, it's Will here from W.T.F Car Reviews. We're standing right in front of my 2021 Camaro LT1. Today we're going to be talking about the new sticky tires that I ended up getting. This channel also hit 1,000 subscribers recently. It actually happened on my birthday, so thank you guys so much for that. I can't even explain how grateful I am for it to happen on my birthday. I don't know how many other people can say that, but it was definitely a special moment for me, so huge thanks to you guys. I also haven't done this before, so I'm going to tell you guys a little bit about myself. I know it's probably a little bit overdue, but let's get started with this video. So for those of you guys who don't know, I've owned this Camaro LT1 since February now. It was the end of February, maybe the beginning of March, but it's been about 6-7 months now. I put about 10,000 miles on it already, so I have been driving it quite a bit. We've been on quite a few road trips, but I really love this car. It's been absolutely perfect for me. We're going to do a 10,000 mile review as the next video. This video is going to be basically what we just talked about. We're going to talk about these new tires that I just got. So up front, we're going to have the Firestone Firehawk Indy 500s. I know a lot of you guys recommended these. I was thinking about getting these tires for quite a while now, but the price is finally right, so I decided to pull the triggers. So up front, we're going to have 255/35 R20 tires. They're surprisingly sticky up front. We're going to do a performance drive. We're going to do a 0 to 60 test and see how this car has improved compared to the previous all-season tires. And let me tell you guys, it's definitely a serious improvement. But coming out back, we're gonna have the same tire setup. I chose to do this because we're only running on 8.5-inch rims, and I didn't want to do a staggered setup so I can keep the tire rotation and keep these tires on the car for as long as I own it. So back here, we're also gonna have 255/35 R20 tires. Huge improvement. You'll see in the 0 to 60 test how much quicker this car really is thanks to these tires. We did do it before and after and all that. Coming out back, yeah, we got the MPP Performance exhaust, so it wouldn't be right if we didn't give you guys a little bit of an audio clip in this review. So let's rev it up a little bit. Alright guys, like I said, since this channel hit 1,000 subscribers, it's only right for me to thank the people that really helped me out the most. Obviously starting with my family. Of course, I would be nothing without them, so thank you so much to my family, my parents, my grandparents. My sister, she's helped me out a little bit with these videos too. I had no idea how to edit at all, and my little cousins, they all helped me out quite a bit. I didn't really know how much this camera, social media stuff worked, so huge thanks to them. Other than that, Joe Rady, you guys may be surprised by that. I'm sure you all know who he is. So I moved to Tampa about a month or two before I actually started doing the car reviews. So I messaged Joe, told him that I watched a ton of his videos. He was a big reason on why I went with this LT1. He made 2 videos about the LT1, one with the manual, one with the automatic, and I definitely wanted the manual, but there just weren't any in the area, so I wasn't planning on special ordering the car either, since it would have made the price significantly more expensive. I also told him that I was planning to start car reviews myself too, and if he had any advice for me. His response was fantastic. He was super supportive. He actually told me to meet up with him at this car meet. This is the first car meet I ever went to in my life. So I was super awkward. I posted a couple of videos on my YouTube channel from that car meet. Those were my first videos. Yeah, so I met up with Joe. He told me some really good advice. He said to get like a WTF Car Reviews t-shirt. He said to get a business card to look more professional. However, I haven't really gotten any responses from my business cards. So they do help you look more professional, but they don't really produce more results. But I definitely see why the business cards make a big deal. It makes you seem like you are more professional and take your business more seriously. So I really appreciate Joe's advice on that. He also mentioned that until you have a decent subscriber count, you're probably not going to have much luck with dealership reviews, which is and isn't true. At first it was definitely true because I started going to dealerships asking for car reviews before I even posted a single video on my YouTube channel. So I was basically saying, hey, I want to have a decent supply of reviews so I could post reviews consistently. But obviously they were hesitant because they were unable to see any of the work that I've already done. They probably wouldn't want to give me the cars to drive. I also want to give a huge thanks to Jose, GM over at Jenkins Mitsubishi. He was one of the first GMs to really allow me to do full car reviews. I also want to give a huge thanks to Jonathan. He's a sales manager over at Regal Kia. He's a super cool guy. He had absolutely no issues with me working with him. When I walked into his office for the first time, when I was telling him what I was doing, I was stuttering so bad. I couldn't get a sentence out, and he put his hands up. He was like, stop, start over. I like what you're saying. Make it sound good. And I was like, okay, good. Took a deep breath and restarted. And he was like, cool, sounds great for me. So huge thanks to him. He's an awesome guy too. Huge thanks to all the dealerships that I've been working with. Most of them are just fantastic. I just want to give a huge thanks to those two because those were really the first 2 guys that made a big impact. Also Michael from Regal Honda. He was actually before Jonathan at Regal Kia. Michael allowed me to review the Type R limited edition, although I just did the exterior on that car. That car was in the showroom. I wasn't going to take it out of the showroom. But I've done several reviews with him. We did the Civic, we did the Insight, we did the Odyssey Touring. Bunch of cool cars, great guy. If you guys ever saw him in person, he's a really cool dude. He's got like Tarzan hair, it goes down to really, really low. But anyway, huge thanks to him. I also can't thank my buddies Taj, Wheeler, and Laves enough, because those are the first guys I ever told about my channel. I also mentioned it to my buddy Ben because he was a salesperson or a manager over at a Chevy dealer in Pittsburgh. So I figured I'd get some opinions from him on what I could do and how it could be better. So huge thanks to all those guys. They were super supportive. They were giving me some really good advice, and I'm definitely appreciative of them. All right, guys, I just finished getting my haircut. We're gonna spend the rest of this video just talking a little bit about me. So let's go back to August 26, 1997. That's the day that I was actually born. A little background about my parents. They're actually political refugees from what used to be the USSR. My mom ended up coming here in the late 80s, and my dad came here in the early 90s. So the United States was accepting refugees from Cuba and USSR back then, and my parents were lucky enough to make the cut of people that were eligible to come here. So lucky enough, they came here. My parents both met each other in NYU Business School. My dad was a sophomore, my mom was a freshman. Problem was they ended up having me shortly after. So two people that aren't from America, families not from America, no American background in terms of money, no English language. A lot of problems could be arise from having a kid while you're in school. But lucky for me, they made it work. We spent my first 3 or 4 years in this apartment, in an apartment complex in Bensonhurst, Brooklyn. Not the nicest place, of course, but we made do what we had. A couple years went by. My parents ended up moving to a different apartment in that same complex because my dad ended up getting a better job, started making a little bit better money. So we got a little bit of a nicer apartment, but still in that same complex. A few years go by, we ended up moving to New Jersey because my dad got a different job. I would just like to add that in my family, nobody spoke English. So my parents at home, they would only speak Russian. They could speak English if they needed to at the time, but they just preferred to speak Russian. I'll tell you why in a second. My grandparents, they only spoke Russian. My great-grandparents only spoke Russian. Well, they spoke Yiddish too, but for the most part, they only spoke Russian. So my parents didn't want to speak English in the house because they wanted me to be able to comfortably speak with the rest of my family. So I could see where they were coming from. The only problem was once I ended up going to school, so when I was 5 years old, I went to kindergarten, I had absolutely zero idea what anybody was saying around me. It was like moving to a new country with a whole new language, and it was just a huge culture shock wake-up call to me. But obviously, you got to make do with what you got. I started going to ESL, started learning English, and by second grade, I became pretty comfortable with English, and by now, it's like I don't really have a Russian accent at all. I'm sure you can hear that something's not right with the way I speak, but as far as like, you can't really tell me that, okay, this person is speaking English as a second language. I'm sure not a lot of people can point that out. But nevertheless, we'll fast forward to high school. Not that much going on in my early life. Once we got to high school, I was playing baseball. I was playing baseball before, but once we got to high school, baseball became a really serious hobby of mine. But let's fast forward to junior year now. This is probably the most eventful part of my high school life. Not in a good way, but so I was a catcher for the baseball team. I was a pretty good defensive catcher. That was basically my thing. I wasn't really much of a hitter. As a matter of fact, I wasn't a very good hitter at all. It's starting to rain now. If you're gonna hear some drops, that's what it is. But I wasn't a very good hitter at all. I was mostly just a defensive catcher. But the rain's starting to calm down now. So in high school, I wasn't the best hitter. I would probably bat around 200, so pretty abysmal, honestly. You probably wouldn't find a single player in college that hit 200 in high school. But I was a very good defensive catcher. I had a really good pop time. I was consistently around 2 seconds. My best time was like 1.88, I believe. It's public record. You guys can look it up. But consistently, I was sitting around 2.0, so a very solid college catcher time. The problem was there was another catcher on my team. He was also pretty good defensively. I was a little bit better defensively, but he was a much better hitter. He would hit like well over 350, and he would hit several home runs throughout the season as well. It's two things that I just wasn't doing at the time, but even though I was a better defensive catcher. Regardless, my high school coach, before the season started, told me that we were going to split time. So I was optimistic, thinking that I would get a couple opportunities to show what I got in the middle of a game or just during the game. But 2-3 weeks into the season, I never got that chance. So I sat down with my college coach. This is actually the second time I sat down with him. The first time I sat down with him, he basically just said, be patient, you'll get your time. Second time I went to sit down with him, and this is a completely different sit down. This is like a week later. And I say, Coach, I don't know what's going on. You said I was in a split time. I haven't even gotten at bat yet. I want to play college baseball. You're definitely not helping me reach that goal. And he looked me right in the face and he said, Will, you're not a college baseball player. I don't even think you're a high school baseball player. And that was a huge emotional drop for me, because I couldn't imagine my coach saying that to me, because I definitely was a college baseball player, not at the time too, because I had like 3 or 4 schools that I was in the process of speaking to. This was still my junior year, so there's no written commitments at the time. I didn't have any verbal commitments either. But the fact that I was speaking to several schools about potentially playing baseball for them made me kind of look at this dude and like, what are you even talking about? Why are you trying to make me upset or something? That's the way I took it. I didn't think of him saying that as him being honest. I thought he was just saying that just to be, you know what. But we ended up just like locking eyes for multiple seconds. I was not speaking, he was not speaking, but he broke his silence. He basically said, but you can become a college baseball player. You keep working hard, you got the work ethic, you got the motivation or whatnot, a bunch of BS crap that he was just saying just to make me feel better. But it doesn't matter. That was the end of the meeting for the most part. I continued playing for him. I obviously wasn't going to quit baseball. I still love baseball. But I worked harder, kept playing. A couple months go by. I ended up with a few offers from colleges, a couple D2s, a couple D3s, no like money scholarship offers from D1s. There were a couple verbal commitments saying that you could walk on for my school if you try out, but that's probably not a risk I was willing to take. So as far as the schools that were very interested, there was Post, there was D2 in Connecticut, Point Park, D2, well, NAIA school, which was like a D2 equivalent in Pittsburgh. There was a school in New York, a little upstate New York. No schools in New Jersey, that's where I was living at the time, but that's about it. So I ended up choosing Point Park. My parents wanted me to choose Point Park. I wanted Post because I knew their coach since I was a sophomore in high school, maybe a freshman in high school. That's the first time I actually talked to him. He came to one of my showcase games. He's like, I like what you see, and basically we were on good terms since then. So I was definitely online with Post. But Point Park offered me a lot more money. My parents wanted me to have a city upbringing. They wanted me to be around a lot of people or whatnot. I don't know why, but they wanted me to go to Point Park. So I went to Point Park and I met a lot of great people there. I had a great time at Point Park. The only problem is the school is just an absolute joke. So as far as like education, if you're not a performing arts major, if you're not a actor, singer, dancer, the school is just not for you. There's really no reason to be there because it's kind of a joke in every other regard. But regardless, as far as baseball program there, they helped me a lot. So as far as the coaches, Coach Torres, Coach Rock was the hitting coach, and I was a 200 hitter in high school, and this man made me a 350 plus hitter in college, just with like one sentence. He said, I don't care about your mechanics. I don't care how your swing looks. Stop worrying about how your swing looks. See that ball? Hit it. I don't care if you have to hold the barrel in your hands. Hit the ball. That's all you have to do. Once you hit the ball consistently, we'll work on your mechanics. So I was like, wow, okay. So I started to do that. I was just focusing on hitting the ball, and within no time, my mechanics got better without even any instruction, because in order to hit the ball, your body will naturally adjust itself to make it as efficient as possible. But I'm rambling now, we're going too far. I don't know if any of you guys play baseball or follow baseball. I don't even play baseball anymore. But anyway, he helped me a lot. My freshman year, I hit almost 400, which is pretty good for a freshman in college. The only problem was my arm was starting to become really dead. I was throwing like 80 plus miles per hour in high school to second base as a catcher. My pop time was consistently around 2, sometimes even better. But as soon as I got to college, my arm just became really, really dead. I felt like I had really nothing in it anymore. It wasn't really in pain. There wasn't really any pain. I can't really describe it to you, but I was struggling to throw the ball over 65 miles per hour. The ball going to second base had a really, really solid loop. So I really was no longer the defensive catcher that I was before. I was still blocking, I was still framing pretty well, but as far as like throwing the ball, I was no longer just zooming it into second base. So, but as far as hitting, I was still a pretty decent hitter. I played a decent amount of games on JV. I played a few inter-squad games in the fall with the varsity squad, got about 100 at-bats, hit like 3, I don't know the exact number, correct, and there's probably nobody that's going to be watching this that can correct me, but let's say I was hitting between 375 and 390 towards the end. So for 100 at-bats, that's pretty good for a freshman. I was definitely satisfied. But I still didn't make the Florida roster. That's the 25-man roster when we cut down the 70-man roster that we start with. That's mostly reserved for returning players and guys that can really hit the ball out of the park consistently, or can throw the ball 90 plus, and neither of those were me. But regardless, let's fast forward to sophomore year. Freshman year was great. I had a great learning experience when it came to baseball. Had a great time overall. But fast forward to sophomore year, my shoulder was completely gone. I could not throw the ball for the life of me. I was too hot for the ball to second base. I couldn't throw the ball back to the pitcher without bouncing it. There was just nothing in my arm at all. And it took a toll on me offensively too, because it was so dead that it was affecting my swing. It was affecting my confidence behind the plate. It just overall sucked because it was really affecting me, not just mentally, but physically too. So I decided to take the redshirt year, my sophomore year, which was a blessing and a curse because it gave me a lot of time to focus on improving for baseball. I was always in the gym. I was always in the cage. After going to the gym for about an hour and a half each day, going to the batting cage for about an hour a day, that's 2.5 hours out of your day. If you have class, that's about 4 additional hours. What are you gonna do with the rest of your time? When you're in college, you're a young kid, you're living on your own. Well, you got a roommate, but you're not gonna be making any good decisions, you know what I mean? So for me personally, I always needed baseball. I needed something to keep my head out of the stupid stuff because the stupid stuff were just always so super appealing to me. So to keep my head on straight, I needed to play baseball. I learned that my sophomore year. So coming into junior year, I had a really serious, like, disciplined approach. I would only focus on baseball. I wasn't focused on any of the BS crap that the colleges are known for. My college wasn't really known for it anyway because my school is pretty small, a different group of kids. The thing was, one of my buddies from high school went to Pitt, and Pitt was right next to Point Park. I actually lived off campus in Oakland, and Pitt is in Oakland. So it was about a 10-minute walk to my buddy's place in Pitt, and they were partying all the time. He was in a frat, and it was just all over the place. So I would do that sophomore year because after 6 o'clock, you know, the day's over. I already worked out. I already did my baseball regimen. I finished my schoolwork. Now what? Am I just gonna be sitting on the couch watching TV? Fast forward to junior year, all I was focused on was baseball, schoolwork, and just getting on the team so I can make the Florida roster. So I ended up having the best offensive season of my life. I switched to first base because instead of trying to fight the fact that I couldn't catch anymore, I just accepted it, tried to learn a new position, which I was pretty decent at. I would pick the ball pretty well. My ground ball skills weren't very good, and my throwing was obviously not that good anymore because my shoulder had literally nothing left. But regardless, I switched to first base. Offensively, I hit pretty decently over 400 that year. I hit probably like 406. I want to say like 406, whatever. It doesn't really matter. I hit over 400 that fall. And I thought I made the team because it was like the 3rd or 4th best batting average on the team. The problem was I really wasn't hitting for power. I had a couple doubles, I had a couple decent shots. I may have had a triple or two, but when it came to the home runs, I was just not producing. I specifically remember being in the on-deck circle one time, and coach came up to me. He goes, T-Saul. They used to call me T-Saul at Point Park. Don't want to get too deep into it, but they called me T-Saul. He was like, T-Saul, what are you thinking? And I was just like, nothing. He goes, what do you mean nothing? I was like, nothing. And he was just like, you gonna hit a home run this year? And I was just like, watch this. I don't know why I said that, but I was just really confident that I could hit one if I wanted to, which stupid. Most baseball players will realize when as soon as you try to hit a home run, that's when you swing and miss. But I kept a level head. I kept my approach. It was just words out of my mouth. I didn't actually change my approach to the plate. But when I got into the box, I remember it. First pitch, the pitcher throws me an absolute meatball right down the middle. It was a fastball. He was probably throwing like 82. It was just perfect right there. And I got all of it, literally all of it. As soon as I hit it, I launched the bat in the air, smiled at the coach, and like was jogging to first base. Like I was all happy. And then I hear, and I look up, the ball hit the top of the fence and went back onto the field. And I'm barely rounding first base. And I just start booking it to second, slid into second, barely made it. And it was pretty embarrassing. And at that moment, I knew, yeah, you probably don't have the power to make this team. You can hit 400 all you want, but when push comes to shove, those fly balls are going to get caught most of the time. But regardless, I still thought that I had a good chance since I had a strong batting average. But when push came to shove, when the rosters were being cut to separate the Florida roster from the rest of the team, I came to the coach's office, and you can just see he was just upset. He didn't want to say anything. We were silent for about like 8 seconds when I sat down, and I looked at him and I was just like, no. And he looked back, he's just like, no. It was close, but not quite. Out of the 25, you weren't even 26. You were probably number 28. So definitely some work to do. I understand that you're a junior and whatever. I don't remember exactly what he said, but it was along the lines like, you're a junior, maybe it's like time to move on. I was just like, so what are we gonna do? And he was like, well, if you decide to transfer, I will definitely give you a great recommendation to any coach that you're talking to. And I was just like, really? And he was just like his eyes lit up because I know, like, for a baseball coach, especially not on the D1 level, they're making their money. Their job is basically to bring in and retain students so the school can make more money. So it looks really bad for the baseball coach when you have a lot of kids that are transferring out. And he did have a lot of kids that were transferring out because he would bring in a lot of kids from all sorts of different backgrounds just to weed out and find the best players. So his strategy was not very efficient when it came to the school being supportive of his system, but his strategy resulted in a very successful baseball team. So as far as a baseball coach, I got nothing bad to say about Mr. Torres. He was a good coach. He understood how to successfully put a team together in a circumstance where not a lot of people even know the school existed. So definitely props to him. The thing was, I was just not good enough to play for him. So I decided to transfer schools because at this point I realized, okay, if you're not good enough at your best, I hit 406 or whatever, that was the best I could play. I understand that. I'm not going to be a 500 hitter. The following year, I hit 406. That's better than I could have ever imagined hitting. The problem was, even at my best, I was still not good enough. And as heartbreaking as it was, this was really one of the worst times of my life. I was really down for like over a month. I was just down. I was like, what am I going to do? Like, baseball's done. What am I going to do with my life? I got to take school seriously. I'm in this BS school, Point Park University. I get a degree here. Might as well get a degree for business at phoenix.edu. You know what I mean? Like, it's not a real school, and I'm not playing baseball. So what's my future look like? And it really was a tough time because I had to choose between what do I want to do for the rest of my life and do these people around me mean anything to me? You know what I mean? Like, because if I just leave you guys, if I just say, okay, my future is more important than the friendships I've created here, how does that look on me? You know, it was a really tough decision to make. So, and whatever decision I made would have been the wrong one. I know that. So it was just a really tough time in my life. But I spent the next few months just looking for colleges. I talked to literally every single Division III school in the West Pennsylvania area. Talked to Chatham. They were actually part of Pittsburgh, so I didn't really want to go there. But I talked to Washington, Jefferson, St. Vincent College, talked to Bethany, all those guys. I talked to basically every single school in that conference, had meetings with all those schools. But my deciding factor, if I was going to transfer, would have completely relied on the credits transferring. So I had about, like, say 63, maybe 65, I'm not sure about the exact number, but say it was between 60 and 65 credits at Point Park. So if I can get 80% of those credits to transfer, that's the school that I'm going to. And that was my only criteria of it, because I was going from a D2 to D3 school. I was basically guaranteed the roster spot. I was basically guaranteed at least some playing time because, again, I was coming from a much higher level of competition school. But regardless, I went to all these different schools. Washington and Jefferson was actually conference champions for baseball several years in a row. So they were definitely on my mind. It's just they were not really interested in me because since they were the champions, they didn't want to replace any roster spot and didn't want to make any like bad impact on their team, which I understand. So they were kind of out of the question. As far as Chatham, Bethany, and I'm not sure what other schools, whatever, but two of them offered me 44 credits transferred, which wasn't bad. I was definitely considering it. But St. Vincent College, I met with him. So the coach, I'm not going to mention his name because I'll mention later why I won't mention his name. But so the head coach at St. Vincent College, I met up with him. He's telling me all these great things. He starts it off by saying, yeah, we're looking for somebody that can make an immediate impact at first base. And that's a red flag right there. And I won't tell you why, but it was. But so he said that to me. He kept talking. He was saying, yeah, we got the airport right next to the school. So maybe one day St. Vincent will allow us to take a plane down to Florida. So he had that on the line too. He had no intention of ever having a plane to Florida. He's afraid of planes. So he would take a 24-hour bus from Pittsburgh to Florida every single year, there and back. And the bus would break every single time because they would never ever pay for a new bus. It would have a transmission problem. It would have a tire pop halfway through. It would have the axle bend. I don't even know. But there was always a problem. But I'm getting way ahead of myself. Regardless, so he was telling me everything I want to hear. He's like, yeah, we're gonna make sure that this is an affordable package for you. You're gonna have almost all your credits transferred. But that was not on him. He said that, and the school sent me a copy of my updated transcript. They said, we're gonna accept 57 out of your 63 credits. So I was like, wow, they really accepted that? The next piece of paper says, this is your semester tuition bill, $700 for a semester. So $1,400 a year to go to the school, and they're gonna accept almost all my Point Park credits. Sounds like a no-brainer to me. And he's looking for an immediate impact at first base. So how could I not go to St. Vincent College? Done. We're going to St. Vincent College. So I transferred there, got an apartment off campus because I transferred halfway through the school year. I was by myself too, just a one-bedroom apartment, and I loved it. I stayed there my entire time at St. Vincent. I had a bunch of buddies that also moved in to the same complex. But regardless, as soon as I show up to the first practice, the captain, well, not the captain of the team, the starting catcher on the team has the same last name as the coach. I was like, whoa, how do you have the same last name? That's pretty crazy. He was like, yeah, that's my dad. Yeah. Now, I don't want to bash him because he's a nice kid. He never gave me a reason to not like him. It's just the dad. Like, how are you going to bring your kid onto the team, have him start catching, even when he's hitting in the low hundreds, never throws a runner out in second? Like, I'm not sure what he was going for with it. But regardless, obviously he wanted his son to have a good time in college, play baseball, be a starter. But how are you going to have team chemistry when everyone on the team is watching you play your son, even when your son can't hit the ball out of the infield and he can't throw a runner out at second base? So his only argument was, okay, since my son's 5'3", he can catch that ball at people's shins and make it look like a strike. That was the only thing that he was good at, honestly. And it hurts me to say this because honestly, I wasn't that great of a player either. But in my 2.5 years there, I hit around 240, and I never even had a consistent chance to play. I never got comfortable in the box. I'll be put in the game once every 2 weeks, maybe once every week, whenever the score was lopsided. He would give me a chance to hit, and I would still hit like 240. I never had a consistent chance to play. Every time I started a game, I always got a hit. I never ended a game with 0 hits if I had multiple at-bats. You guys can check out those stats too. I never went 0-4 with a 3+ at-bat game. Regardless, I was never given a chance to catch. God forbid. That was like a big no-no. Also, the big impact at first base. That starting first baseman is probably one of the greatest hitters I have ever seen in my life. If you're watching this, Bob, you know it. If any of my teammates from college are watching this, you guys know it's true. I've never seen a better hitter than Bob. The backup first baseman also hit absolute bombs. Fish, shout out Fish. He's a police officer over in Ocean City, Maryland, keeping the teenagers safe. These two kids were some of the best hitters I've ever seen in my life. They were significantly better hitters than me. They were the two best hitters on the team, in my opinion. The starting first baseman started at first base. Backup first baseman was our DH. So immediate impact at first base, coach. I think you got it taken care of. You might need an immediate impact at catcher, but you won't admit it because it's your son. But regardless, I don't want to go too far into this. The final thing that made me not like this coach was the last game of the season. So this one's pretty bad. So on the last game of the season, on the second to last game of the season, he pulled me and a bunch of seniors to the side, and he said basically, this game is going to be for the younger kids. Tomorrow, you guys are going to get your chance. You guys are going to start, and you're going to play the whole game. And we were like, sick, cool. So I told my parents. They told their parents. My grandparents lived in Sarasota, which was about a 2-hour drive to Lakeland. That's where we were playing in Lakeland. And so they made the trip, and turns out I didn't even get an at-bat that entire game. I don't know if coach was doing it for personal reasons. I'm pretty sure it was for personal reasons. I asked him 2 days or 3 days later. I ended up meeting with him. He sent me a text, which was weird. He sent me a text saying, Will, I want to meet with you before practice on Monday. So I didn't respond because I didn't want to talk to him anymore. But regardless, I didn't respond. I still showed up and met with him at the time he requested. The first thing he says to me, go get Coach Doofus. And I was just sitting there like, why? And he goes, I don't talk without Coach Doofus. And I was just like, you sent me a text saying you want to speak to me. You didn't say you want to speak to Doofus too. He goes, I can't speak without Doofus. I was like, all right, where is he? He goes, downstairs with the trainer. So I go downstairs. He wasn't there. I told the trainer, if you see Doofus, tell him to come to coach's office. So I went back up. I told him to come up. He's busy. And he goes, well, wait outside until he comes in. So what does that even mean? You wanted to talk to me, but without your bodyguard, who happens to be 6'8", 240 pounds, you're not gonna say a word to me. Like, what are you afraid of? You always act like you're such a tough guy, but turns out when the heat's turned on, you got to get your bodyguard. Regardless, I opened the door, I kept it open, and I stood right next to his door, just looking at him for the next like 5 minutes until Doofus came up. So Doofus came up, and his attitude just shifted completely. He goes, Will, I just want to apologize to you. Like, I completely forgot. And I was like, Coach, stop. Like, you did not forget. It was personal. Why'd you do it? And he goes, it wasn't personal. It was a coaching decision. And honestly, I was just going with the better options. And I'll go, Coach, you told me 12 hours before this happened that I was going to start and play the whole game. If you were playing the better options, you would probably just give me an at-bat sometime at the end of the game when we were up by 7 runs. He goes, honestly, Will, I was just going with the better option. And he said it just like that. And I go, honestly, it would have been nice if you did that last year at catcher. I don't know if he picked up on it. He probably did, and he's kind of slow. But regardless, I ended up leaving. I went to practice. I wasn't quitting, obviously. I love baseball too much to ever quit. But I went to practice. It turned out being my last practice. I enjoyed it. The virus hit, and we had to all go home, and that was basically the end of my baseball career. And the funny thing is, at St. Vincent, I really didn't have many negative moments. Most of the moments were mostly positive, and I'll mention them at the end of this video. But I just want to also mention this coaching situation, because I thought it was absolutely ridiculous. I've never heard of a college coach bringing his son onto the team, let alone keeping him starting while his stats were the way that they were. But regardless, let's mention some funny things about my college experiences. So at Point Park, the first thing that I would like to talk about is, so a little background on Point Park. It's a performing arts school, of course. It's for mostly dancers, actors, and singers. So the dancers would basically get the downtown section of the school. They would have their studio there, and the actors and singers would have their little studio in Oakland. Oakland was about 2 miles away. It was about a 4 or 5 minute drive by shuttle, so pretty quick process overall, basically on campus. So since the playhouse, or the little studio that they would use to do their stuff, was in Oakland, there would be a permanent shuttle that operated from 8 in the morning to midnight from downtown to Oakland. So thanks to that, there were a lot of students who chose to just live in Oakland, because downtown everything was really expensive, and there's a lot of people there, and it's just dirtier overall. Not that Oakland is clean. Oakland definitely has some dirty parts too, but just in terms of overall on your own college experience, I feel like Oakland was definitely better than downtown. But regardless, I chose to live in Oakland. But before I chose to live in Oakland, one of my buddies, who was a year older than me at the time, he was one of my teammates, also lived in Oakland. So one day, me, my friend, and her friend, we went to my buddy's place in Oakland, and we were hanging out. We had a couple of drinks. It was during the week, so we had class or whatever, rehearsal, practice the next day. So we weren't going too crazy, had a couple of drinks, had a good time, went home, hit the 12 o'clock shuttle to get back to downtown, because we all lived downtown at the time. So on that shuttle ride, they were in, like, I'm not sure completely, but let's say they were in the second row of the shuttle. I was right behind them on the third row, I think. And I noticed at one point, she stood up and reached over the seat like she was going to grab something like this. So I didn't think anything of it. But anyway, her friend turns around and tells me, like, I think she threw up. And I was just like, you think she threw up? She's like, oh no, she threw up. It's all over the place. And I wasn't laughing at the time. It wasn't funny. But I was just like, what are we gonna do? And she was just like, I don't know. And I was like, you need me to help her, like, back to her room? And I don't remember if I actually did or not. I probably did, knowing the gentleman that I am. But so regardless, that wasn't the funny part of the story. The next day, I was hanging out with my friend, and his roommate was a performing arts major. So he had the 8 a.m. shuttle that goes to the Playhouse. He had to do his singing, acting classes, whatever, at the Playhouse. So he caught the 8 o'clock shuttle, and he comes back at like 9:30, and he's cursing up a storm. He's like, this effing school is effing disgusting. I walk onto that shuttle, and there is vomit all over the floor, all over the seat, and the driver doesn't even realize it. Nobody's cleaning it up. And I thought it was really funny when he was bringing all that stuff up. My car just shut off. Let's start it back up. Whew. All right. So I thought it was really funny when he was bringing all that stuff up. But the funniest part, he's like, you got to check out this Twitter account. So every single, like, performing arts, like acting, musical theater person, they love to talk about, like, stuff that they don't like, but especially on Twitter. So you should have seen it. Like, this school is a joke. You guys are disgusting. You're gonna get people sick. Like, there was hundreds of just like, at Point Park, you guys are disgusting. But it was just so funny that I watched it happen. And there were 2 sets of drivers. So the driver at night probably smelled it, probably heard the process happening, didn't even bother cleaning up. They were just like, oh yeah, that's just not my problem. Got up and went home. The next morning, they probably smelled it. They probably saw it. They were probably just like, yeah, we'll just let the kids just sit in there. I don't want to make the assumption that the morning person smelled it, because the morning person might have been in a rush. He jumped in and just took the kids to school or whatever. But yeah, there probably should have been somebody that pointed it out and got him to clean it up. It's pretty bad that we got to the entire next day with the vomit still staying there. But anyway, you'll notice that a lot of these funny stories are going to start with having a couple of drinks. That's usually how it goes. But my next story is going to be the next following semester. So now I'm already living in Oakland. This is my sophomore year. Me and my roommate, we're hanging out with my previous year's roommate and his current roommate. So a lot of roommates, but we're all living separately at the time. So we had a couple of drinks. We went to a few different parties, had a great time and whatnot. But we get back to the place, and my roommate's friend, he's not feeling too good. I still have a video of this stuff to this day. He was in the toilet. He had his situations there, but he couldn't get up. He was done. He's like, I need to sleep here tonight. And we were like, no, we have a couch. We have beds. Like, we got all this stuff. And he was just like, no, I'm gonna have to be here tonight. Like, this is gonna keep happening over and over again, type of thing. And we're like, oh, okay. Anything we can bring for you? And he's like, can I get a pillow? And we're like, ooh, we don't have any pillows. So me and my roommate both had one pillow, and we were not giving it up to be on a bathroom floor with somebody throwing up. So we were like, no pillows. So we took all of our trash bags and like our grocery bags and made like a legit pillow. Like, this thing was supportive. You put your head on there, you're not falling and touching the floor. It was a solid pillow. And we put his head on it. He didn't realize what it was. So we put his head on it. He goes, this is a good pillow, guys. Thank you. So he didn't even realize that it was a bunch of bags. But regardless, about 20 minutes goes by. He goes, guys, I'm really, really cold. And we were like, damn, we don't have any blankets either, because me and my roommate only had one blanket for each of our beds. So we were like, crap, what are we gonna do? We realized that the previous day, we had a pizza delivery person come by, and they were hanging out with us for like about an hour after they dropped off our pizza. I'm not gonna tell you guys why, but they were hanging out with us, and they ended up forgetting their pizza warmer in our kitchen. So we realized, oh, we got that pizza warmer. Pizza warmer is meant to keep stuff warm. So we cut the pizza warmer down the middle like this, and we laid him on the pizza warmer and then closed the pizza warmer on him. So he said he was perfectly warm the entire night. He had his shoes on, so he didn't need to put anything over his legs. We just put the pizza warmer like around his torso. And so the next morning, all right, so he had a fine night. He slept through it like nothing. He woke up the next morning, and he was just like, damn, I did not realize that was garbage bags and a pizza warmer. I thought that you actually gave me a pillow and blanket. All right, well, I don't want to go too far into this. That was a funny moment. But fast forward to St. Vincent, definitely a bunch of funny moments there too. The first one that I'm going to mention actually doesn't involve any drinking at all. So I had to take an arts class. It's required for everybody. It was a liberal arts school. Everyone has to take a performing arts class. You can take either dancing, drawing, singing, acting, whatever. So I thought that acting would be the best class for me. I figured all I'd have to do is just talk. I didn't keep in mind the amount of stuff I would have to read. It was a ridiculous amount of reading, but it was enjoyable nevertheless. If I could go back in time, I would have probably chosen like drawing instead. That would probably be a little better of an art class, but I took acting and I really enjoyed it. So for the final project for acting, we had to do about a 2-minute monologue. And the monologue that I was given involved the character that was killing a fly with a cigarette, a lit cigarette. So we did a couple of rehearsals or whatnot. I did my role the way that it was basically written on paper. And then the teacher pulled me to the side after I did my rehearsal. And he was just like, Will, you're doing a really good job with this, but I think it'll be better if you had a cigarette. And I was just looked at him like, oh, okay, I could bring like an electronic cigarette. My friend has a Juul or whatnot. They were pretty popular at the time. And he was like, no, it has to be like a real cigarette, like lit, so you can actually show putting out the fly. And I was like, oh, I could do that too. Cool. He asked me, do you smoke? And I was just like, no, usually not. I've maybe smoked like 5 cigarettes in my life, only when I was like, whatever, you guys can figure it out. But regardless, I don't smoke. So he was just, okay, well, if you bring this lit cigarette, I think it'll really help your project. So I did that. I ended up smoking the entire cigarette in class. It was one of my most eventful moments of my life. I have it on video. I could actually post it on YouTube if you guys want to see it. I did an entire monologue while smoking the cigarette, and it was a pretty cool monologue. I didn't really have any hiccups in it. I was just basically just like blown away by the fact that I was allowed to smoke a cigarette in the middle of a college class. So that was definitely a cool time for me. I don't know if it's gonna be cool for you. I don't know if you're gonna find it funny or whatever, but if you guys would like to see it, let me know. But another funny moment of St. Vincent. So we were coming back from this party, me and my, I don't want to say roommates because I had my own little one bedroom apartment. They were next door with a 2-bedroom, but I'll call them my roommates. Me and my roommates went to this party on campus. I didn't drive, so we got to the party. It was a bunch of fun. We had a great time, but you guys know how parties get. Eventually it gets to the point where, okay, I'm not just gonna keep drinking for the point of drinking just because I want to be here. I started asking, I was like, all right, guys, you ready to go back? And they were just like, no, we're having a good time. Like, let's stay for like another little bit. And I was just like, guys, if I keep drinking, it's gonna be a bad night. Like, I'd rather just go home. And he was just like, all right, Billy, just wait. They called me Billy at St. Vincent. They called me T-Sol at Point Park, but whatever. So they were like, Billy, just relax. We'll leave in like 20-30 minutes. And I was just like, come on, guys, because I knew like with them 20-30 minutes usually meant like an hour and a half, 2 hours. So I was just like, I'm just gonna walk back. All right, guys, no hard feelings. And they're like, all right, man, like, are you sure? And I was like, yeah, no hard feelings. Like, I'm not upset or anything. Like, I'm just gonna walk home. I want to go to sleep. And they're like, okay, cool. So I was walking back, and to get back to our apartments, it was pretty close. Our apartments were about a mile, maybe a mile and a half from campus, but there was also a huge cornfield that you can walk through to get back. And mind you, it's like 2 in the morning, maybe 2:30 in the morning, and I'm walking through a dark cornfield in the middle of the night for about a mile. Anything could pop out at any moment, but I wasn't worried about that. I was just worried about getting into my bed and going to sleep. So anyway, I got to my apartment complex. I took a different entrance though than I usually do, since I was coming in from the back. I didn't realize that, but you guys will see where the relevance was in a second. So I turned left right into where my apartment would be. I walk in, realize that my key doesn't work. So I'm like, what the hell? How's my key not work to get into my apartment? I was like, did Karen change my keys? Yes, my landlord's name was Karen. But yeah, so the key wouldn't work, and I started calling the emergency hotline for the apartment services. No one's picking up, and I'm like, okay, well, you're not just gonna change the keys on me and make me sleep outside without telling me. So I just took the door and I broke it open. It wasn't like it's a two-piece door. So the only thing that would break is that little stem in the middle. So it's a really unsafe door. If you live in one of these apartment buildings, you should probably tell your complex to get a different one of these doors. But so the stem on the bottom, it just basically pops right out when you pull the door really hard. So I basically ripped the door open, walked up to where my apartment would be, and realized that key also didn't work. And I'm like, what the hell? How do they change the key to my own apartment too? Or do I have someone else's keys? I start looking at my keys. I'm like, no, these are my keys. I keep trying to open it, and then I hear a woman's voice inside my apartment scream, "Billy!" And mind you, they all called me Billy at this school, so I didn't think anything of it. She starts screaming, "Billy, Billy, someone's here, someone's here!" And I'm like, "What do you mean someone's here? Open the door!" Because I thought she was talking to me, not realizing she's screaming for her husband to come out or whatever. And I hear Billy, Billy, get quieter and quieter. I realize she's getting away from the door, and I look over to the door next to me, because my neighbors next to me had like a mistletoe or like a little tree hanging on their door. I look next to me, the door doesn't have that. I look behind me, my neighbors underneath me had a nice floor mat that said welcome. I look behind, they don't have that either. And then it clicked. Every single apartment in this complex looks the exact same with the exact same layout. I walked into the wrong apartment. So I walked in, broke the wrong door down, and it took me a good 30 seconds to realize that I was in someone else's apartment building. So as soon as I realized this, I hit the books. I sprinted out of there as fast as possible, went to my actual apartment, and ironically, as I was walking into that apartment, so were my roommates, my neighbors. We all ended up getting there at the same time. I was in such a rush, I chose to walk home, and I ended up doing all that damage, whatever, and the end result was the exact same. So I felt like a complete idiot. That situation definitely taught me to be more patient. Finally, I want to leave this as the last thing that I say, because this was my last memory of St. Vincent. So when we would go to Florida for St. Vincent, our coach would get us these really nice suites. We would have these 3-bedroom, 2-bath, really nice condos with balconies in Champions Gate, Florida. It's about an hour or so towards Orlando. But anyway, they were really nice little suites. You could probably fit 20, 30 people there comfortably with no problem at all. But as we mentioned, our trip was cut short basically due to that whole virus thing, and I had that situation where the coach basically lied to me about playing, so I was just basically in no mood at all on my last day. But regardless, it was our last day. We all knew it, so we decided to invite a bunch of people over. We had a ridiculously good time. It was definitely fun. We were making a ridiculous amount of noise. There is not a chance that nobody found out about it, but no one ever said anything about it, but I'm sure everybody knew. Regardless, we invited so many people, and eventually 2 of the younger kids in the team, one of them was a sophomore, one of them was a junior, and they were both pretty big dudes, but they were just getting like snappy with each other the entire night. They were going back and forth, and eventually they were like, all right, you know what, that's it, we're gonna go fight. So we made a huge circle inside of the building, or inside of the living room, and they were just sitting there wrestling with each other, just going at it. And mind you, these are some big dudes. One of the kids was much bigger than the other, probably had like 40 pounds on him, so it was borderline unfair. But it was just such a funny situation. We all had a couple drinks. Obviously, all these stories are gonna have that, except for the first one. But oh my gosh, it was so funny watching them fight it out. But that was like the grand finale for my college experience. But other than that, I definitely enjoyed college. I definitely enjoyed playing college baseball. It was a good experience all around. It definitely had its ups and downs. I'm gonna mention the downs as well as I'm gonna mention the ups. But for the most part, I was very happy with my college experience, and I'll definitely suggest anybody that plays college baseball to just keep working hard, always keep a good attitude about things, because it's really easy to get a bad attitude when things aren't going your way. Obviously, you got all these guys saying work hard, stay confident, whatever. That's easier said than done. What you got to do is you got to find a way to keep your mindset positive. because in a sport where you're going to fail more times than not, in a situation where you're going to be coming in as a freshman where people are going to be better than you can't just look at the negative, because if you look at the negative, eventually that's going to be all you see. So you got to find the positive in the negative. You got to be like, okay, yeah, I kind of suck right now, but this is just giving me so many more opportunities to show people that I can improve, and people pick up on your improvements. So you got to look for ways to find the positive in the bad. But all in all, guys, thank you so much for watching. I hope you guys got a nice sense of who I am as a person. You got a good idea of some of my life experiences. If you want to hear about like other jobs that I've worked, I've done door-to-door sales, I've done other kind of sales, I've done landscaping, I've worked a ton of different jobs. If you want to hear stuff about like that about me, let me know. I'll make another video about that. I don't really plan on talking about myself a lot on this channel. It's not that interesting to me. I think cars are a lot cooler. But other than that, again, thank you so much for watching, guys. I hope you enjoyed. If you have any questions, let me know. And I hope all of you guys have a great day.